Good morning, good afternoon, good day boating, mate. So today we're going to talk about how to run the North Fork of the Payette. How'd you do that? That question got asked in Blue Thumb Land. How do you run the North Fork of the Payette River? Well, it's like how you run any river. You have to get. I need more information. I've heard that one before. We laugh about that. Me and other experienced boaters. You're gonna go run that? I need more information. Well, why do they need more information? Because have you ever heard the term knowledge is power and power is control? And that power gives you the be able to control the chaos because when you start doing harder water, it's going to be chaos at the end of the day. And when you do the North Fork of the Payette, it's not 10 rapids. Hold on one second. I got a book here full of rapid names, I think. So let's see here. I'm back. But yeah, it's not. Let's see, where did I write it down in here? I wrote them all down. And the reason I did is because I wanted to know what they all were. Um, I just know it's all class two plop and drop. So let's see here. I know it's in this book. I've seen it here before. Maybe it's in the back. Anyway, there's like, I don't know, probably 14 or 16 rapids. But you remember, it's 15 miles long, top to bottom of the North Fork is. And so, and each rapid is not just 5 feet. Oh, that's steepness. Yeah, that's the proper steepness. There's like a distinct drop in steepness. But steepness starts like a half or 3/4 mile up, and then it goes for another half or 3/4 miles past. So you have what we call warm up alley. I have what's called right turn Clyde. Once you make the right turn, you're into technically steepness because it starts to drop. And then that's what I call the reverse J hook or the hook because you come down and there's a hole in the middle, one or two holes, and then you do the hook. And then once you wrap around the hook, then you'll see a rock face on the left. And that's when you know you're coming into the actual drop of steepness. Well, then after steepness, there's what's called steepness two. And that's a whole nother 3/4 of a mile rapid. And after steepness, you get, I don't know, 800,000 feet of an eddy. It's the only place you can eddy out after you just did a mile and a half of boating. And then after that, you're winding up for Nutcracker, which a lot of people do not do their first time. People that have done it, professionals. I would call this person a professional. He's awesome. We even say badass Superman boater. 1 out of 5, only 1 out of 5 times did he make it through Nutcracker. It was in a cat boat. You might know who it is. I know who it is. If you know me, you know who this person is. But yeah, he only made it 1 out of 5 times. He swam it 3 or 4 times. Not fun. So people know this knowledge. Remember, knowledge is power to control the chaos. So that's why people don't run Nutcracker. And the other one they don't run is Jacob's Ladder. Because right at the get go, what they call, was it the pencil sharpener? You don't hit that right, it can swim you, and it's a long swim. You're not catching a netty for a while. Like it's a long swim. You're looking at another, I think at the very end of golf course where it makes the left turn is where it kind of eddies out, where you can get out of the water. Um, there's video when Kramer flipped. I have the footage. I should show it of when he flipped in Ocean's Wave, and he didn't get back on his boat and flip upright. I mean, guy's older, late 60s, early 70s, which is proud. I mean, I hope I'm doing that when I'm late 60s, early 70s to have just the balls to get in a boat to do crazy stuff still. But he flipped, and Greg went and rescued him. And he was in the water a while. It's not a short swim. That's one thing about the North Fork. They like, oh, I'll be in the water, and 20 seconds later I'll be to shore to an eddy. No, it's like 2 minutes or 3 minutes later you will be to shore. So again, that's why, someone's like, how do you do the North Fork? Well, one is they do it in chunks. There's the top 5, the middle 5, and the bottom 5. And now it's not really the bottom 5 anymore. You start at Houndstooth, which is the bottom 7. So you almost cut it in half because it's 15 miles. So you're starting at almost the halfway point, 7.5 miles. And you can go above Houndstooth probably. Another way you can add more to it is to start at the end of golf course. If you start at the end of golf course, you really are closer to more of half of the whole river, 8 miles at that point. And the reason people chunk it is because you got to get used to these long rapids. It's not normal boating. Normal boating is like, woohoo, plop and drop, class 2, plop and drop, class 2, plop and drop. No, this is on like donkey. This is like playing a video game for like 2 hours. You're like, your focus has to be there. And then you have to have all this in your head. Like, okay, I got to remember this. I got to remember that. I got to remember this. I got to remember that. Because there's a lot of it is read and run. I mean, you're doing 15 miles of one long rapid. So it's read and run. But the reason they chunk it is so you learn all those sections. So that's like, that just comes second nature. So you just keep piecing the puzzle together. That's why they chunk it. Usually they start with the lower, then you do the middle, and then you do the upper. You can start on the upper, but a lot of people will, because you can do the upper and right above Nutcracker, which is the end of steepness, you can get out and portage your boat around. And kayakers do this all the time. They put in right below the nuts because they don't have no nuts. I'm just messing. Hey, wherever you're at in your step up, that's where you're at, because like it's what happens. I mean, it's just what it is. So you progress when you're feeling your Wheaties, you step it up. Or with a crew, sometimes having a crew makes it nicer. If you know you have safety, you should always have safety. But even safety, class 5 is self-rescue. So that's what people don't understand, is that when you get into step up to class 5, you are at self-rescue stage. So yeah. So again, like I said, they do it in chunks. They do the top 5, the middle 5, and the lower 5. And they usually start at the lower, and people do the lower a bunch, and then they'll start doing the middle a bunch. And then you're just piecing the puzzle together. So as long as you piece the puzzle together, it's what it is. So, but the 3 big ones are Nutcracker, Ocean's Wave, and Jaws. Ocean's Wave has swam the 3 best cat boat. All 3 of those rapids I just mentioned have swam all 3 of the best top cat boaters that I know personally. And not fun. I think Kramer's record was his 5th run to his 105th run. He did no swims. So he had 100 top to bottoms with no swims, which is awesome. That's how you want it. You don't want to be swimming. Don't get me wrong. Swimming is part of boating, but when you start doing harder stuff, you don't want to be swimming. Only if it's in like the swimming pool. So anyway, I just funny. Someone's like, how do you run the North Fork? You just get on YouTube, but you can through video is actually a good way to learn a river. You can go to American Whitewater. You can write all the rapids down. You can write all the mileage down when it's coming. You can put stars by like, oh, those are the 3 big ones. Yeah, they're not even class 5. They're 5.1 and 5.3. Like they rate them harder than class 5. And you can call it 5+, but they call it Nutcracker's 5.1 and Jacob's Ladders is 5.3. Now these are at decent flows. These are at like, I don't know, 1,600 to like 22 or 2,800. I've been told 26 or 2,800 is ideal level for cat boating. And that above that, it gets on. Like I've had Creature Craft friends go up there at like 4,400. They didn't really have the right boats and their gear wasn't all in great shape. And they're like, holy hell, like it's monstrous. It's those eddies I talk about, like the few eddies and few whatever pull out area or like, slack water, it doesn't exist. It's just, it'll push you right into the next one. Like where you might have, I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute, say between steepness and Nutcracker, that ain't going to exist. That's going to be like, instead of a minute, it's going to be like 10 seconds. So like, it's just going to be blowing through because there's so much water. It drops 220 feet per mile through Jacob's Ladder. And the reason they call it golf course is because there's 18 holes. Are they real holes? It's either holes or rocks. I'm sure at high water, it's all holes because there's a ton of rocks in there. Rocks create structure. More water you get, more water pours over, creates holes. So at low water, it's like a Tetris game. You're just like dink, 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 dink. You're missing in and out. So again, someone's like, how do you run the North? I thought that's hilarious. I'm like, they've been working on that since I was born, since if you read on the American Whitewater write-up on North Fork of the Payette, it's a guy from Kentucky. There was a guy from Kentucky, because I'm from Kentucky. And then I think Rob Lester was part of that. Because the North Fork is used as a training ground for the Stikine. Because top to bottom is only 15 miles. The Stikine is like 43 or 45 miles of on like Donkey Kong. And there ain't much slack water in there either. Once it starts, and then it's not only is there not slack water, it's 1,000 to 1,400 foot walls. So that's part of the reason why the North Fork got conquered is because it was the training ground to do harder and bigger things. And the beauty of the North Fork is it's roadside. When you got beatered and you've had enough, you just hike up to the road and throw a thumb out, head to Banks and go get a burger, or head to Smith's Ferry and go to Cougar Mountain Lodge and go get a steak. That's the beauty of roadside. When you've had enough, you can say, we're good. It's roadside. Being roadside takes a lot of the edge off because you know that factor is right there. Plus, if you were to have any medical issues or injuries, you're only an hour to Boise. You're only an hour drive. So if they can get you out of the river in a car or in a ambulance within 35 minutes to an hour, you're gonna be at a hospital. So that's all in your back. Remember, knowledge is power. Power is control. So that's how you control your fear to get on these rivers. It's just, and then they just chunk it. You're like, oh, I did this. So you build confidence. And you're like, I did this. And you're learning the flow and the ebb and flow of the river. You're learning every river is different, like the speed, the pace, the eddies, the pullouts, the structure, all that stuff. So anyway, this is Bill Guy. I just want to talk about, how to run the North Fork of the Payette. This is just a 10-minute video. If you truly are wanting to run it, you should spend 2 to 3 hours of just knowing what all the rapids are, finding out someone who's done it. You really got to go, everyone's like, who's going to show me down? Yeah, you want to be shown down, but at the same time, you really want to learn how to read and run. There's parts you want to be shown down, but then there's sections you need to go. Once you've been shown, you need to get back on and do it yourself, because then that makes you like, okay, I got to remember what I just saw. So that makes you really put in practice what you just saw or read on, read and run, right? Run it again and read and run. So that's why people show you down, is to show you the lines, but it can be pointed out from the road. Like you can start here and you're going to go here. And with the notepad, you could write all that down. And of course you got to remember that. And then what you see from shore and what you see on water is two totally different worlds. So sometimes you got to, whatever a landmark is, you got to remember that, okay, I got to remember this landmark. That's when I do this, because you're going to see it from the side, but you got to remember you're going to be seeing it from the river. So you also can put a footage like, 100 feet from that log is when I got to do this move. It's the same way in Westwater. When you do Skull Rapid, you come in sideways and there's a dihedral crack line. And right at the dihedral crack line is when you start pulling with your boat. That's what I was taught. Everyone knows that if you've ever done Westwater in Utah on the Colorado River. So, all your skills build to do harder things. And don't get me wrong, the North Fork of the Payette is hard. It's not easy. What makes it hard is even in the slack water, it's class 3. Even in slack water, it's class 3. And people are like, why? I'm like, because if you don't get out, you're going to go right into class 5. I've seen people flip where it wasn't even hard. Class 2 plop and drop. 2 people. Last year's trip on the North Fork Payette Rendezvous, 2 people. They swam, and it wasn't hard. When they swam, I was like, what the hell? They just get hot and wanted to dip in. They're like, no, dude, I flipped. I was like, are you kidding me? They're like, no. So just even in the easy parts. That's why you got to stay focused. But anyway, I may do another video with some pictures and some, not just pictures, but video, because I'm Crazy Bill TV and I have lots of footage. I even have drone footage. I have drone footage of Nutcracker. I have drone footage of when somebody pinned Nutcracker. I've seen 2 pins in creature crafts. People have just pinned it. Another kayaker I know who I have met, and I'm like, they pin. The problem with the Payette is you can fly in, drive an hour, and jump on the river. Well, when you leave your trash in the river and you just say, peace, thanks, community, for digging out my crap and leaving, that's kind of BS. Don't do that. Don't be that kind of person. I mean, at least good that you let the community know to get your trash out of the river, but part of the problem is people don't know, if you've never been there, there's a train track runs the whole length of the North Fork of the Payette. That's the other secret people don't know. So once you get across the river, you can actually access river left. To get back to where the boat was pinned, which was in Nutcracker, you actually have to go down where Creature Craft Guide School Camp is, which is right at the very bottom of it's the top 5. It's actually the top 4. So I don't think you do No Way Jose. And you boat across, or you can even swim across with the life jacket. You hike up to the train tracks, and then you hike like a mile and a half up. And then once you see the nuts, you can, boom, go down. Someone should actually put markers up there like, this way to Nutcracker, right? This is the way you get to the nuts. Because I've lost a drone before, and that's how I know what I'm just now talking about. I had to hike all the way up to get my drone. Luckily, it landed within like a foot on a rock within a foot of the water. So these are all things, again, that you need to know. Like when you do hard things, you want to know, how do I get out of this? What's the rescue plan? Like, what's the bailout plan? How do I walk out of here? How do I, I've never done the illy before. My first question is, so if we have an issue, how do I get out of here? What side of the river we walk, and where do we walk to? We walk to put in, and we walk to take out. And they're like, well, if you're above Greenwall, it's river right and back to put in. Below Green River, it's river right to take out. So that's the rescue plan. And people are like, really? I'm like, yeah, I asked those questions. And you're like, but you're a creature craft. I'm like, crap happens to everybody. It happens to everybody. So always ask. This is where the knowledge comes in. When like, how do you do X river? These is the questions you should ask on all rivers. It's the knowledge you need to obtain upon. And get a notebook. Write it down. Once you start writing, you ingrain it in your brain a whole lot quicker, and you remember it. If you write it, you'll remember it. And then read it, and then read it, and read it. Take more notes. You should have 3 to 5 pages. Like in order to do the Norfolk, you should have pages. You should have 4 or 5 pages of information that you just write down, so you'll know. So anyway, I love talking about boating. This is Crazy Bill with Crazy Bill TV. If you have any comments about this, leave them in the comments. If you've ever done the Norfolk and are wanting to do something else. So anyway, just want to get on here and say, how do you run the Norfolk of the Payette? I thought it was hilarious because there's a lot involved with that river, because it truly is a class 5. Like, it's not, I'm a raft guide, it's class 5. Even the raft guide didn't run everything his first time. He didn't run it. That's why raft guides make you run a river 4 times, because it's all about the information and the knowledge. You know where all the hazards are and how to run the hard stuff clean, where you make it look like class 2. So again, everyone have a great day. It's all class 2, plop and drop until you swim.